Okay, we're going to fix this Christmas tree that has LED lights on it. You can see that this little LED bulb here has a little stub of a wire sticking out. That used to be connected to this, and this part here was connected over here. All it has is a little stub sticking out that used to actually be there. It broke off because they didn't do a very good job of tying the wires up, so when someone lifted the thing off, it just broke the wire. So what we're doing is we're just going to take this. We carefully took a pocket knife and just slip it in here and cut a little bit of the insulation and then a little bit up there and slide it off, cut it off, and then strip the end of this. This has a marker on it. You see it has little white dashes on there on one side and nothing on the other. So you want to make sure that you put the same color. It has to be positive and negative on LEDs. It can't just be either way. So we're going to attach the one that has the dashes. Here we have a nice little Weller 60-watt soldering iron. It's made for electronics. You put a little bit of solder on it, get a nice little bead on the tip. That'll help transfer the heat. You put that underneath, and you just put your soldering iron on there. It should only take a second, and you're done. Let it cool. Alright, and we took this little piece of heat shrink tubing here and put a slit in it. This is for exterior use, for like using in your boat and things like that. Comes in this kit from Amazon. You can see you get all different sizes and shapes of pieces of different diameters. It's only like $10 or $12, and you has glue on the inside of it to seal it nice and tight, so it's watertight. I made the slit so I could slide it down here without having to cut the wire. I'm going to put this over that, and hopefully I can squish this together, and the slit will glue together once I heat it up, because this is, like I said, got glue in it, and we can cover that all up with that slit. I think I need to make the slit a little bit longer. We have a little more room to cover that. I guess I could have cut the wire and slipped it over both. So I guess that would be another way to do it. But I figure if I close it up like that, hopefully everything will be all nice and watertight. I'm going to try and cover that little nub sticking out too, so it doesn't short out to something. So slit it just a little bit more. And it's heat shrink tubing, so you can either heat it up with your soldering iron, a lighter, a heat gun would be nice, but I can't seem to find mine. So we're just going to put this on here like that. Now the heat of this soldering iron will actually melt this heat shrink tubing. I don't want to actually mess up my tip on my soldering iron by getting melted plastic on it and stuff. So I'm going to just do it with the body of the soldering iron, which is nice and hot here. And we heat that up. See, it's actually shrinking and pulling open. But once it's warm, I can actually take the two halves and squish them together. And the glue inside will hold them together then. You can see it squishes together nicely. It makes a fairly watertight seal on there, hopefully. We'll find out. And we hold that while we melt this piece over here the same way. If you want to go quicker, you can use a lighter or something, but then you have to worry about burning the insulation on the wires and things like that. Once you got it nice and warm, you can, like I said, make sure you squish it down to the wire. It should shrink pretty good because it's supposed to shrink to 1/3 of its original size. So you pick out the size that slips over it as tight as you can without a lot of extra play. And when you're done with your soldering iron, you get this is a fancy little stand, but you get a little sponge, like your kitchen sponge. And you use that with a tiny bit of moisture, hardly any at all. Wipe off the extra solder and flux that's all burned on there. So then you have a nice shiny clean tip on your soldering iron, you see, hopefully. And that's how it should look, nice and clean, all ready to go. Then you don't have all that burnt up rosin from the solder on there. This other one, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take apart this little sleeve here. This just pops on here, and it's a little sleeve that slides off. Two pieces go together over that to hold it in place. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. You have to figure out which side this is going into, because it's only two sides. It's going in this side over here, not over there, so we have to then strip this wire, the one that comes out on that side. And like I said, I'll do it fairly close to here, so this little nub is way too small for me to try and solder onto and all that. I didn't trust to be able to get a really good solder joint there on something that small. But we'll do the exact same thing with that one, and then we'll take it outside and see how it works. Alright, so here we are on the other one. We're going to carefully strip away the insulation. Just enough to expose the wire. You got to be really low angle here with the knife. Preferably don't cut the copper wire. Yeah. Now you try to get that, yeah, I cut one little strand of copper wire there. You try to peel it away, the copper, the green insulation here from this, and leave the little copper strands there. Now if you get it to where you just have the insulation and no wires, you should be able to almost peel it off like that. Now we managed to break one of the little wires, but I think it'll be pretty good. They twist it around there nicely. And to prepare it, I like to clean things up with a little piece of steel wool. It's like the really fine steel wool like you get in steel wool pads for cleaning your dishes or something. But those have soap on it. This is just steel wool you buy at the hardware store or something for when you're working with metal or something and you want to shine it up. And you slip your piece of heat shrink tubing on here. Cut it only on one side, halfway down or so. And do the same thing as we did with the other side. Alright. I'm going to slip this on here. You can just slide this out of the way for now. Slip this on, make a nice little twist on here. You want them to be nicely and mechanically connected to each other before you solder them. And we take and put a little dab of solder on here. You want to actually get the wire hot enough that the solder will melt on the wire. You don't actually want to put the solder onto the soldering gun tip and just melt it and then try and push it into the wire with the wire being cold. You want the actual wire to be hot enough to melt the solder when you put it together. And then we put this little sleeve over, just the same routine as the other one. So I just didn't show you the first part there, so I guess we'll skip over this part and see how this works when we plug it in outside. Okay, here we are outside in the dark, trying to fix our Christmas light. This here goes right on here. This is a fiber optic LED tree. It has a little plug, which you can barely see here, that we will stick into the socket if we can find it. Alright, here's our cord, and here's our little socket we just attached. I made a big ball of electrical tape over the whole damn thing so the cord wouldn't tend to break. I wrapped it around with wire ties, and we'll just stick this together, and ta-da! It's all lit up now. All fiber optic, green, glowing up and down the whole tree here. And that's about it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want, I'll put in a link maybe to where you can get the soldering iron and stuff like that. It's a 60-watt one rather than the little cheap ones you buy at the hardware store or someplace. You have to buy it on someplace like a electrical supply or Amazon or something. But it works a lot better than the little cheap ones do. Thanks for watching.